This is really cool here early on a Monday. Andy Staples joins us in studio. He covers college football for The Athletic. His podcast is called The Andy Staples Show. He was in town for the Pac-12 title game on Friday night and hanging out for a couple more days. Thanks for doing this today, man. How are you?
Oh, my pleasure. No, my body's still on Eastern time, so this is a perfectly normal morning for me.
So you've been to the gym already today, had a couple of coffees?
Hadn't been to the gym yet because the gyms in the hotels here, not 24 hours because they feel like you shouldn't be working out when you can be gambling.
Right? Want that money first, and then you can go.
That's exactly right.
Overall, your impressions of the Pac-12 title game on Friday night, and when did you think to yourself, you know what, I think USC might be in some trouble here?
It wasn't when I thought they'd be in trouble. There was a point where they got a turnover from Utah. I think they were up 14-3. They turned Utah over in Utah territory, and I was like, if Utah doesn't get a stop here, this is going to get real dark.
Yep.
And Utah got the stop.
Yep.
And then scored, and it's like, ooh, now I don't. But once you could tell that Caleb was hurt, and it was it's late in the second quarter, he starts taking sacks, which he doesn't take. He doesn't give himself up. You know, normally he does the Houdini stuff and gets out of there. And so when he started taking sacks, it's like, okay, something's off, something's wrong. And I see, being at the game, I didn't hear the broadcast. I didn't realize the broadcast missed the leg injury the entire time.
Oh.
And so I had fans tweeting at me like, he's just being dramatic, blah, blah. And I'm like, you can't see this?
Huh.
You can't see that he's barely walking, like, and still playing? But once that happened, there was no chance for USC because that defense was not going to be able to get enough stops to keep Utah from outscoring them.
Yep. Does he still win the Heisman?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I don't see who else it would be.
Okay. All right. Does he play against Tulane?
That is a better question. I mean, if I'm Lincoln Riley, I don't know if I want to play him against Tulane. Because it's a hamstring. You know, those things are soft tissue. You don't really know it's better until it's actually better, and you don't really want to do any permanent damage or any further damage to it that could put next season in jeopardy because they could have a special season next year. Now, what USC has to do, and it's not worrying about Caleb Williams, is they have to figure out what they're going to do on defense and whether that's make a change at defensive coordinator. And I know a lot of the fans want to see Alex Grinch gone, but my thing, and I wrote this the other night, it's not just deciding if you want to change defensive coordinators. You have to change your entire philosophy. Lincoln Riley has a history. This USC team looked exactly like all his Oklahoma teams.
Yep.
Elite offense, terrible defense. And I'm not saying that lightly, and I'm not trying to be flippant. Literally, statistically, terrible. And all they need to be is average. If they are average to slightly above average, you can be a national title contender with that offense. So he has to decide philosophically, how do I want to practice? How much do I want to hit? How much do we want to tackle? And decide, do we want to be like Alabama and Georgia and schools like that actually compete for national titles? Because that's the only way.
Great answer so far. And I'm with you because if they go up 3 scores, then school could be out. But do you think you make a change, or does he keep them and point to maybe the previous administration to do a good job?
He can't do that
recruiting?
because the numbers were too similar to Oklahoma.
The tackling's atrocious.
It's awful. And I mean, I felt like I was watching. Like I remember going to the Bedlam game in 2018, when Kyler Murray, and then he's playing against Taylor Cornelius from Oklahoma State. I mean, who remembers Corn Dog other than Oklahoma State alum Garth Brooks? But Oklahoma State had a 2-point conversion to win the game at the end. Those two teams should have been nowhere near one another, but that defense was so bad.
Yep. To his credit, they're not really even that good right now, USC. Offensively, they're amazing.
Right.
And it's his first year.
But it's all guys he got in the portal. It's not really anybody he inherited. And that's the thing.
Yeah.
He's going to be able to recruit well.
That's.
And they should be able to get some good defenders out of the portal. But they're going to have, if they really want to get the best of the best, they're going to have that different philosophy because those guys are going to ask, what are you going to be like?
Yeah.
Am I going to play on a defense that was like this again? Because I don't want to do that. That's going to make me look bad.
Right. Did the committee get it right? The 4 teams in the playoff?
Yeah, because I think at the end of the day, you can't put Alabama in with that resume. And Ohio State at 4, who else were you going to put in? There really wasn't much of a choice there. And TCU, you can say, well, Alabama would be better against Michigan or Georgia than TCU would. But you do have, they do play the games for a reason. Mm-hmm. And TCU put together a really stacked resume. The Big 12 was very deep this year. So to go undefeated in the regular season in the Big 12 is incredibly hard. And so I think you do reward that. And look, got one more year of this after this one, and then it's a 12-team playoff. And then, of course, we'll complain about whoever doesn't get the last at-large spot, but it won't be the same thing.
No, it's not going to be the same thing.
Do you believe them when they say it never came up, Ohio State-Michigan rematch?
I do, actually, because you don't think about the matchup because you go one team at a time. And you also, they really, having done the mock selection, conference doesn't come up either. You try to go as blind as you can and not think about it in terms of conferences. You just think about it in terms of who they played. And so I think it worked out better for television that way. Because think about this. Think about a potential Ohio, and I realize this is a steep hill to climb for Ohio State.
Sure.
But an Ohio State Michigan game for the national title. People's heads would explode.
Yes.
I mean,
absolutely.
The psychological damage that was done from Michigan winning 2 in a row. Imagine
they want Dave
if
fired.
they win the national. They will 100%.
Yes, they will.
Well, no, half the Ohio State fan base already wants Ryan Day fired. Like the other half would tip. They'd be like, okay, let's do this.
Excellent. It was a weird season. Certainly what happened with the South Carolina game, and then you lose Hooker. But who do you think is playing the what could have been scenario?
Oh, it's definitely Tennessee. Well, Tennessee and Clemson.
Clemson, too. The quarterback change.
Well, Shane Beamer, South Carolina coach, he is the playoff angel of death.
Yes,
I mean,
he is.
Think about this. If Tennessee wins that game, they are in. Yep. Whether Hendon Hooker's healthy or not, even with Joe Milton at 11-1, they're in the playoff in that scenario. And then if Clemson had gone to Cade Klubnik earlier in the season,
yes,
they only lost South Carolina by 1. So they need one more decent possession, and they're in the playoff.
Yes, they are. Yeah. They probably get smoked by Georgia, but that's a totally different offense. With
Exactly.
It is.
Oh. Right, and Clemson does have elite defensive linemen, which changes the math a little bit. And I think if you're Dabo Sweeney or if you're Josh Heupel, you're just like, how did I let the Gamecocks do this to me?
Yeah. What do you think of Saban making the rounds and bringing up point spread?
I just think it's funny because in the week of the Texas A&M game, when they were 24.5 point favorites, they have a guest media host on his radio show every Thursday night. And so I was the guest media host that Thursday night. So I'm sitting next to him at this sports bar in Tuscaloosa, and he is on this rant about we don't look at point spreads, and he's pissed off because he doesn't want people telling his players you're 24 points better than this team when he's starting a backup quarterback and he knows they have really good players. But it's just so he goes off on this rant, and then to hear him talking about, well, if we're talking about what Vegas would say, they'd have us favored in all these games. I'm just like, oh, come on. But that said, it is his job to put his team in a position to try to win the national. And that was at that point, because they had not gotten to the SEC championship game and were not playing, that was all he could do. So I'm sure he was highly embarrassed that he had to do that and probably took a very hot shower afterward. But I just thought it was hilarious.
Yeah. We had people chiming in today saying that they're lifelong Alabama fans for like 40-plus years. They couldn't believe he did it.
I can. He did it in 2017.
Yeah, he did.
He was right, too. They won the national title.
Yeah. Now, do you think people out here want like an odds maker on the committee? That'll never, ever happen. But should they incorporate like a set of...
They already do. Look at how they rank. You know they're using FPI or SP+. They're using predictive power rankings.
They are.
Look at how they rank Texas. Look at how they rank Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Look at where they rank Alabama.
Yeah.
Look at how they treat Ohio State. It's not... Everybody thinks it's because of brands. It's not. It's because of those power rankings that they're doing. They're just looking at it and going, well, why is this team so high and this team so low? And someone comes in and explains how the process works, and they go, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But so there may not be an odds maker on the committee, but there is an algorithm doing the work of an odds maker.
They show a picture of them all watching the game, and no one has notes or anything in front of them.
They got iPads. It's all fancy.
Okay. It's all updated. Another team that really screwed the pooch, looking back, it's now easy to say they weren't Oregon.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
Oh, and the loss to Oregon State was just a killer. Yeah. The Georgia game might have even been able to be excused at that point.
Right.
But, yeah, the Oregon State loss just, I don't know. I think probably they would have had to beat Washington and Oregon State.
I think so.
I mean, it's crazy because they were in the driver's seat for the Pac-12. And I think they could have beaten USC in that Pac-12 title game.
Too.
I think they'd have been fine there.
Andy Staples is in studio here bright and early on a Monday morning. He covers college football for The Athletic, and his podcast is called The Andy Staples Show. Your early reaction to the matchups that we're getting in the playoff then. All day yesterday, Georgia was sitting here at Circa as a 6-point favorite against Ohio State. They're now pretty much 6.5 everywhere.
Yeah. I think Georgia got punished. Because shouldn't the 1-4 spread be smaller, or it should be bigger than the 2-3 spread? But it's not. Because and we knew this was going to happen. You know, it was going to be one way or the other. Ohio State has the athletes to compete with Georgia on the perfect day. If Ohio State plays the way they did against Penn State or the way they did against Michigan, they're going to lose to Georgia, and it's not going to be that close. But they do have the talent. And like Jackson Smith and Jigba, their great receiver who's barely played this season because he's been injured, he comes back. That changes the dynamic of that game. I think that could be a very fun game. And I'm really interested because you have Ohio State fans who are not pleased with Ryan Day right now because of what happened in the Michigan game. I don't know that the fan base is outside, because everybody said, wow, how can you be mad at Ryan Day? He's been amazing. But Ohio State has a different standard than everybody else.
Yeah.
And so if Ohio State goes and gets smoked by Georgia, it will be just as psychologically damaging as getting smoked by Michigan because Ohio State expects to compete with Georgia. It's not like when Michigan lost to Georgia last year, it was like, oh, well, what are we supposed to do against those guys? Mm-hmm. Ohio State has those guys, and it's supposed to be able to compete with those guys.
Yep. Well said.
Yep. Georgia's A game has been ridiculous. How they shut down Tennessee and how they dismantled and embarrassed Oregon. But did you see anything? Was it just say, it's a blowout? Or could you be a little bit concerned of what happened against LSU?
Oh, not that concerned. I mean, they had backups in when LSU was scoring, and Jalen Carter picking up Jaden Daniels like a little baby, I think was one of the more telling images of the weekend. But Georgia, when they turn it on, is just so hard to stop. And that's Ohio State. I actually think Michigan is a tougher matchup for Georgia this year than Ohio State would be because Georgia can just maul Ohio State down the field with those. The line is good, but the way the tight ends block in the run game and then the way that they can use those tight ends by making it look like they're blocking in the run game and then leak them out and throw them the ball, like it's devastating. Yeah. Defenses right now are not designed to deal with that. The player who I thought Georgia was trying to get a little tape on him to scare whoever they play in the playoff was Darnell Washington, their tight end number 0 from out here in Las Vegas. Mm-hmm. He is 6'7", 270 pounds. He has like 3% body fat, and he's an incredible blocker. He has not been a huge producer in the pass game, but only because of Brock Bowers. If Brock Bowers wasn't on his team, we would do nothing but talk about Darnell Washington. So that's, I think, the hardest part if you're Ohio State is how do you cover those guys? How do you deal with those guys when they're on the field at the same time in the run game and you're essentially facing 7 elite blockers?
Good analysis. TCU, can they hang in with Michigan? And I guess what's more likely to happen? 2 blowouts, because we typically get blowouts in the playoff, or for one of these dogs to actually be in a game late in the fourth quarter with a chance to
win. Think both dogs can be in the game.
Oh, they both
I think it's possible. We may get a blowout because things happen, but I do think both underdogs are very capable of competing. And because it's Ohio State playing Georgia, I actually think there's a chance Ohio State could win. It's a small chance, but they have a chance. TCU, I mean, the way they played all season, I can see them being very competitive against Michigan. They're going to hit big plays. Quentin Johnston is going to be the best receiver on the field, and he's going to make plays. All year, teams have known they're going to him and haven't been able to do much to stop him. Now, I like Michigan's secondary a lot, but that guy at 6'3", at 215 pounds, who can run, who has great body control along the sidelines, I mean, there's not much you can do if you get into one-on-one matchup with him.
Uh-huh. Okay, so then the team that they lost to, K-State, obviously a really good team.
Yep.
They get Bama now in the bowl game. You would think K-State is going to be super pumped for this game to play a team like Bama on a neutral. Will Bama feel the same way?
I just want to see who the opt-outs are. Who plays for Bama? Like, Will Anderson strikes me as the type who will play in a bowl game like that. He just personality-wise, that seems to be how he goes. I assume Bryce Young does too. I don't know if he does or not, but I want to know about some of the other guys on Bama's team that are draft eligible. Are they going to play? If not, now it's interesting though, because if they don't, Alabama is still loaded in a way that the next person might be saying, well, I can solidify my starting job for next year, so I'm going to play. That's what these things are almost impossible to guess in terms of motivation.
Yeah.
Like that, because it almost comes down to how they're feeling on that day. And it can fluctuate wildly. And even Alabama, where I think Nick Saban's superpower is getting 18 to 22-year-olds to perform in a largely consistent manner, even he can't produce consistency in this environment because you don't know who's playing. You don't know how much they're going to care.
Yeah.
But I think we can be reasonably certain K-State's going to care. I don't think Felix Anudike-Uzomah, they're really good pass rusher. Like, I can't imagine him opting out here. I would assume he's going to play and that their best players are going to play. So I would not, the spread's appropriately low for this game.
Yeah, and it opened 6.5, so people were already betting K-State, and I think kind of makes a little bit of sense. The Iowa, Paul, you asked for this during the break. You guys want to take a guess?
Let's see it.
You have it? You have the total?
I have it right in front of me. The Iowa-Kentucky total. They play.
36.5.
Good guess.
34.
It's 32.5.
Whoa! That's incredible.
Wow.
Anybody want the over?
32.5.
Yeah.
What a perfect matchup for a bowl game.
Good Lord. And we don't know if Levis is going to play. We don't know if...
What do you think of his draft stock? Or has a pro potential? Because scouts love the guy.
He's got all the tools, but I wouldn't pick him in the first round. Now, you want to wait until the second round and pick him? Yeah, sure. Okay. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
But I just don't think... I think if you're a top 10 type quarterback, you better drag your college offense to big numbers. This was my problem with Daniel Jones, too. Yeah. Like, I don't have a problem if you want to pick Daniel Jones in the second round. His athleticism's off the chart. His arm's great. He seems very smart. But the fact that wasn't an offense that you're like, I got to watch that offense when he played at Duke, I don't want to see him in the top 10.
Yep.
Yeah. What's your couple favorite bowl games outside of the big ones?
Oh, that's I'm trying to think.
I think Utah-Penn State's damn good.
Utah-Penn State's a good one.
Clemson-Tennessee.
Clemson-Tennessee in the Orange Bowl with the orange teams is pretty good. And then the Cincinnati and Louisville Pinstripe Bowl, where Cincinnati just took Louisville's coach.
How about that?
Scott Satterfield headed to Cincy from Louisville, which, listen, Louisville was going to try to run off Scott Satterfield at the beginning of the season. He won too much, and then they couldn't. I think he pretty wisely figured out, let's get out of here because this is going to end badly at some point. So I have this opportunity to go to this program where, think about this. Of the coaches who have coached at Cincinnati in the 2000s, one got the Michigan State job, one got the Tennessee job, one got the Notre Dame job. The one that got one got the Wisconsin job, and then the one that got fired got elected to the U.S. Senate. So you are going to do fine no matter what with this job.
Who coaches the two teams in the bowl game?
I hope he has to coach the first half for Louisville and the second half for Cincinnati.
How great would it be if he said, I'm still going to coach Louisville?
Just flip it.
That'd be amazing. What do you think about Deion Sanders going to Colorado?
I think about this. This is the most excited and the most anybody's talked about University of Colorado football in 25 years.
Yeah.
So maybe since the fifth down.
Yes.
Which was a lot more than 25 years ago.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to get a lot of players there. I think in the new Pac-12, in the USC and UCLA-less Pac-12, if you can put together a dynamite roster, you're winning 8-9 games, whether you coach it that well or not. And I look at the staff he put together at Jackson State. Those guys coach those players very well. Like, you don't go from being a pretty average team. Like, they weren't necessarily a doormat in the SWAC, but they were very average to below average, and went to just kicking the crap out of everybody.
Yeah.
And yes, they got some really good players, but that's not all of it. He's done a good job picking guys who can coach. So I'm very excited to see what he can do because I think he can win there.
Yep, so do I. Wow. He's going to dominate that state. He'll do really well with transfers. And then other guys that he adds along the way from California and other states.
He got the number one player in the country to sign with Jackson State.
Think about that.
He can get people to Colorado.
he'll get him to go to Boulder for sure.
So now, you said this earlier, we won't have this now. So we go to 12 teams.
Oh, yeah.
some people are already pointing out, like your colleague Stuart Mandel, about there's a flaw here about, hey, look at this. Clemson would play Ohio State. Michigan would play Bama.
What's the flaw in that? That sounds like something I'd love to see on my TV. Why is that bad?
Yeah, but you're looking at the automatic bid if you win the conference.
Yep.
Here he's saying, my God, look at what the path would be here. But what do you think now with the at-large still involved and how much conference title games would mean so much with the bye on the line?
Well, they did this. The title of this show is what?
Follow the money.
Okay, let's follow some money.
$450 million.
Well, let's follow some more money, though.
Okay.
The top 4 seeds must be conference champions. Why is that? Because they believe conference championships are sacred, or because they would like to juice the stakes of their conference title games, which are very lucrative television properties.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, let's say Georgia LSU this weekend. Georgia's not playing for anything other than the trophy this past weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Georgia's playing for a bye in 2 years, which is pretty important because I don't think you want to have to win 4 games to win this thing.
Uh-huh.
I don't know when the first 4-game winner who makes it through that gauntlet is going to happen, but I imagine it'll take a while.
Good point.
I think you want to win 3 games. So that is going to be pretty critical. So all of a sudden, the SEC championship game is worth more. The Big 12 championship game is worth more because it's a win-and-in situation for both teams. You know, the Pac-12 championship game, same thing, win-and-in for both teams. USC would have been playing for a bye as well in this game. Utah was playing to get in and to knock somebody else out, probably. So
yeah,
that's what's going to make that very interesting. And then, you know, the way it's deliberately misseeded will create some drama. Like you could have a monster at number 5.
Interesting.
That the number 4 teams sitting there with their bye, and they're going to be like, oh God, we don't want to see them. Or if you don't have a monster at number 5, if there's not a team that's the second best team in a conference that might be the second best team in the country, if there's not one of those and it's a legit number 5, well, guess what? Whoever finishes 12 can probably beat that team. And they don't have to play 1 in the second round.
Interesting.
They play 4 in the second round. And if 12 can beat 5, 12 can probably beat 4. There's your Cinderella. Now, that's going to make for a kind of a blowout probably in the semi, but look at what happened on the way there. You were entertained on the way there. Yeah. And I think that's the part a lot of people miss is this is an entertainment product. They are trying to stage a series of television shows that people want to watch. They're not trying to crown the most deserving national champion. What is that anyway? And what's interesting is you will probably get the most deserving team winning because it is a freaking gauntlet to get through that.
Yeah. And by the way, like the history here, it's kind of bad luck because so many games have been blowouts, but also they're like played on New Year's Eve a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So that's like one of the worst days of the entire year to actually put sporting events on.
Yes. I think probably they will work the calendar to have the semis on New Year's Day, and then you'll have the opening round games be Saturday type games. Quarterfinal games will be Saturday games, or one game on Friday night as your appetizer, and then 3 on the Saturday.
Well, the other thing too, and you travel and you're all over, and this is what you do. Can you imagine if like Kansas State, Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, they get that playoff game on a campus site that first round? Oh, it's pandemonium.
Well, and for those towns, I live in one of those towns. I live in Gainesville, Florida. Like if you suddenly added another home game to Florida's schedule, the businesses in town, the hotels, the restaurants, like that, their bottom line changes considerably. So it's a boon for a place like that.
I saw a breakdown that I think if you go back to the year 2000, if we would have had a 12-team playoff every single year, 66 different teams would have made the playoff.
And how much fun is that? And that is why they're doing it. I think that's the other thing people don't grasp is this will make the sport even more popular.
Yeah.
Because it allows more people to feel part of it. It allows them to be excited about their teams later in the season. And when their team does make a playoff run, like, no, Alabama just getting in, it's going to be just, it's similar to the basketball tournament or similar to the NFL. Like, if you have an NFL team that makes the playoff ever, I go back to the Tony Dungy era Bucks. Mm-hmm. Like, it got to where just making the playoff wasn't good enough.
Yep.
And they ended up making a change. Dungy probably would have won that Super Bowl too, just like Gruden. But expectations will change. But for those teams that don't ever have a chance to even sniff this, when they make that playoff once out of every 20 years. It's going to be huge.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, I'm a Wisconsin fan, but I'm also realistic about it. They can't win a national title.
Well, they would have made the playoff a bunch.
They would have been in the playoff
true.
9 times.
Yeah.
Like, for somebody like me, that's incredible.
Yep. And listen, Wisconsin, don't assume they can't compete for the national title because the fact that Luke Fickell went there, that means he popped the hood on that program and he's like, I can do something here.
He likes what he sees.
And he helped build Ohio State into what it is.
Yeah.
So let's not forget that.
Yeah.
That's a little bit of my negative side coming out, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Everybody's like that a little
Sure. You've been in town now. We've talked to you about, like, eating excursions before.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. You like to get down. Anything crazy in the 3 or 4 days you've been here so far?
Nothing too crazy. Now, we did have to go to Nacho Daddy on Saturday night because we had to pay off a bet from the Pac-12 championship game. My podcast co-host, Ari Wasserman, who's actually going to be on a show on VSiN later today, he had USC, I had Utah, and so he had to take a shot with a scorpion in it. Now, Ari grew up in Scottsdale. So scorpion's a very real threat to your daily existence in Scottsdale. Like, you have to shake out your shoes to make sure there's not a scorpion in there. So the idea of swallowing a scorpion, though it is pickled in tequila, freaked him out.
Yes.
And so I was enjoying this. I spent 24 hours just prepping him. Like, just wait till that little stinger slides down your throat. And he was not in. I got there. I was like, you know what? I feel bad. I've tortured this man. I'm going to show him how it's done. I'm going to take one just to show him it's possible. You know, thankfully, they actually use pretty good tequila for it.
Okay.
So it just slides right down.
No,
you don't even
wasn't
know.
it bad?
Now, I got a little one. He got a big scorpion. I did not pay the extra for him to get the bigger scorpion. I would have if I'd realized that was a possibility. But no, that. So we did that, and then I had a pile of nachos with chicken tinga all over them, and it was spectacular.
Yeah. We told you that berries would be really good here, and you're like, I'll take 2 tomahawks.
Heck yeah.
Heck yeah.
I have eaten a 64-ounce steak in one sitting.
Man.
And had appetizers and dessert. And drinks and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
No.
So, yeah. I like to eat. Yeah.
Are you fast, or is it just you'll take your time and go?
I'm pretty fast.
Are you?
Yeah. I just I like the taste so much. So it's not even a strategy. I just like it.
Yeah. No strategy.
Visit VSiN.com to get current odds, listen for free, find showtimes, and download VSiN sports betting podcasts.